Así como en la quinta temporada habíamos charlado con Marshall Adams sobre cómo fue trabajar en Better Call Saul, volvimos a hacerlo de cara a lo que va a ser el estreno de los 6 episodios finales de este spin-off de Breaking Bad. Conversamos sobre los que nos dejó la primera mitad de esta sexta temporada y sobre algunas de las cosas que vamos a poder ver en lo que queda, obviamente con mucho cuidado de no revelar absolutamente nada. También charlamos sobre cómo fue vivir ese momento que le tocó a Bob Odenkirk, que tuvo un accidente cardíaco en el medio del set y tuvieron que hospitalizarlo, y cuestiones referidas a lo emotivo, a lo emocional, tanto como para los personajes que ya no están y no van a estar en esta entrega, como para todos los involucrados en esta producción, cómo fue vivir ese último día de rodaje después de 7 años de producción. Todo en este informe sobre Better Call Saul.
We now return to Mira Akian and Contre with our latest interview.
Breaking Bad had a much different kind of look than Saul does. You know, it's obviously, times have progressed, the tools have changed, and so have the characters. So all of the characters, we know them from Saul. So to kind of go back, I mean, we did that on in season 4, I think it was, where we went back and saw Saul like packing his office with Francesca as he's leaving, and we actually shot it on 35, and we did it all handheld exactly the same. But we're still on this trip with the characters that we're with, and we have to still be based in Saul. So visually, obviously there are, how can I say this? I'm not sure I can. There are cues that I can take from some things that may pre-exist, that I may want to try to and need to try to be as similar in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's about it, because I mean the show really kind of stands on its own, and where we really are still in Saul's world.
Who's here to see Saul Goodman?
I think each of the departments worked a lot regarding details. And I think the last time you told me that there's a special team that works thinking of the Easter eggs that you are dropping all over the show. So which other department do you work most closely with?
Yeah, I would say it's probably the production design. I mean, my visual sense kind of tends to be more kind of based in reality, kind of, realistic. So I love to light with practical, especially at night. I'm not a big, moonlight guy. So I would say that would be the most, because we have to really pick where all of the practicals go. Street lights. I mean, the scene with the manhole was the last one that aired. We put, I don't know, must have been 20 different street lights down that street. They were all and they all had to be loaded in with a crane and designed and figured out and picked. And anyway, so I would say it's probably the production designer. But I mean, and in a lot of those cases, like I don't even know some of the things that are being planted, like those the two little yellow tags that that the homicide people were there looking at, in the body at Lalo's house, and the cousins walked through and they kicked one. I had no idea that those were the letters that that gave the numbers away for the opening, the first episode to air. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff those guys do all the time.
Why do you need me for this?
I don't need you. I want you.
You've got me. Just not as a law partner.
Well, first off, Ray and Bob are just amazing human beings and so committed to their craft. They're real. I mean, I talked a little bit about saying goodbye and how emotional it was for everybody. 115 people standing around crying. Talking about what an amazing experience it had been. But they are. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much this has been publicized, but they live. Patrick and Bob and Ray all live in the same house, and they rehearse constantly. Anytime a guest actor comes in, they call them and ask them if they want to join. They talk about their motivation and their storylines and all kinds of stuff. So that's, I mean, it's a full immersion program. I mean, they are in it all the time. Yeah. Ray used to giggle about the fact that she writes all of her lines on yellow legal pads over and over and over. She said if anybody ever found those, they would think I was a crazy person. It's like over and over. Like, what are you saying? But yeah, so they're just fantastic people. But they come so prepared that it's really easy to go beyond and even change a few things, but to really ramp it up When people come so prepared, they just know their lines like very well. They know their blocking, they understand it all, they know their characters. There aren't any questions, like fundamental questions like how did I get here and what. So it saves us a lot of time, but also it just ups the level of the game completely for everybody.
But is it possible for me to meet the owner?
I am the owner.
Really? How lucky for me.
You work both with Giancarlo and with Tony Dalton as the main villains of the show. Who is the scariest to see transforming? Because I think they are way too different to how they are in real life. So who's the scariest to see transform?
Boy, that's a great question.
Would you be interested in franchising? Because I would be eager to invest.
Well, perhaps we should go to my office where we can discuss it further.
I mean, Giancarlo is phenomenal. I mean, I remember my first episode there with Vince, episode 301, and it might have been actually 302 by the time, but we block shot them together. But we did a shot with Giancarlo where he's in the Pollos Hermanos, and then he walks out and he's kind of sweeping, and he's being the owner of the restaurant, and we turn around and we look at him, and his face completely changes from the owner of Pollos Hermanos to the drug cartel kingpin, and man, I mean, without saying a word, it just gave me the chills. I mean, really did. But honestly, I guess I got to say that I got to give it to Tony. Tony's character is so scary because he is so nice, yet he's willing to do whatever it takes. And that the fact that he laughs and kind of giggles through all that, it just is so disarming. And he's this lovable guy that is capable of anything. I mean, it's just absolutely whatever it takes.
Enséñame qué traen.
I was lucky enough to kind of listen to the writers talk about where that started, and it was actually, he was in an abandoned building across the street, but that seemed too convenient, and then they were thinking like a vehicle, and finally it just struck them, well, let's just let them go through the sewer. So even though they don't exist in Albuquerque, but so that thing obviously is not there for anybody that's going out to try to find it. So yeah, they built that whole set, on stage, and then it was up to me to kind of trying to figure out how to light it, because of course, they're especially in Albuquerque, there's storm drains, so they flood all the time. There's no power or lights in there, so we had to figure out, kind of get some grates that we could feed some light through and stuff like that. But and then the actual thing itself that he's looking through, that storm drain that he's looking through, obviously, it's got lights kind of coming through there too. But they did a beautiful job of marrying all that stuff together. Michael's just an amazing actor and a lot of fun to work with. And actually the inside of the oil tanker was actually our last day, which we were shooting at the same time that I was shooting motion control of the teaser, where we move through the desert and come down and find the piece of glass and have the rain and the whole thing. So those two things were happening at the same time. And that oil tanker was just an amazing build by the art department. They had kind of oversized it, and it had to be able to open on both ends so we could get a crane down it, and then they could only lift it so much. So the fulcrum of the crane had to be could only be at a certain height, and so we had to get this really specialized piece of equipment to come in, and it was a huge rig because obviously it's on stage, and we've got beam projectors, making the sunlight kind of coming through the trap doors and the holes and things for me. So yeah, it was really intense. I mean, you can feel. I mean, we'd shot the cousins already at the exterior version, but except for the look down in and stuff like that. But yeah, you could just feel. I mean, whenever those guys arrive, it's scary as heck. I mean, the kind of jeopardy. I mean, they are killing machines, and they're not going to die here because we've seen them in Breaking Bad. Right?
Yeah.
So, and it was tough for Michael because it was his last day, and he was moving on, and so there was all this kind of added emotion, and so yeah, no, it was a very intense day.
And what about
really
the
happy with the way it turned out?
Yeah, and what about the suicidal thing? Like, that was again another spectacle of like what Better Call Saul can do. Like, surprise us with something that you know that is going to happen, but you don't know how it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, like you said, I mean, that's the writers and their genius. It's, watching them kind of unfold these moments that we all kind of know that are coming, but and then they still change it. It's
Yeah.
and shake it up. That was intense. That was like an entire week out there at what we call Murder Valley, which is, it's a good hour away from Albuquerque. So it's a big drive to get out there. We're on a reservation. It's a specialized area, and then they built that little set, and so yeah, it was intense. I mean, all of those guys in the same place, staring each other down, and then the misdirects and the moments where Gus thinks he might be in trouble, and he goes into that not knowing what's coming either. So yeah, it's pretty intense.
I read that one of the Moncada twins helped them to like coaching them to box.
Yeah, he absolutely was the fight instructor. I mean, it's Luis. He's an amazing fighter and trainer. He's trained actually a number of the writers and producers on the side. More of obviously as a workout. They're not looking to fight, I don't think. But yeah, he came in and choreographed that entire fight, and just did a fantastic job of it. Just really, really good. But because neither one, well, actually, it's the other way around. So Patrick had never really done a fight scene before, and Bob, had done the whole movie where, so
Yeah.
he was trying to switch it around so Patrick could feel, looked a bit more educated and skilled, and Bob, having never been in the ring, or Jimmy having never been in the ring before. So it was great, but that was the whole thing. It was an attention to detail. We had Al Goto, who's been our stunt coordinator forever. It was just fantastic. So between he and Luis, watching every little detail. But again, we shot that scene. I mean, including the walk up and then stuff outside and that was 2 days worth of work.
You can't hide who you really are forever.
And Patrick is such an amazing guy, and he's a great actor and just a really good human being. So yeah, it was very difficult to say goodbye to him. It's and tough for him too. I mean, it's funny that he and Michael Mando both talk about the famous call. Like, you get the call from Vincent Peter at the beginning of the season, and they know, oh, this is it. This is the one that's going to tell me, I'm going down. But he did it with such grace, and he's just only Patrick. I mean, he said, he felt so lucky. At the end of every season, he kept saying, why are they bringing me back? Like, there's nowhere for this character to go. And then they would come up with something, absolutely fantastic for him to do. So he said, he felt like he overstayed his welcome a little bit anyway, but, I mean, he was so happy to be there, as we all are. I mean, it's just such a pleasure to be around such great writing and talented folks. And in addition to that, they're just super, super nice people.
I think I'm in the middle of something. There's really no need to.
We shot it, I want to say, for 2 days, I think. I mean, it was full 2 days. So yeah, a lot. I mean, a lot. Depending on the angle and stuff. And poor Tony didn't get to come in until the very end. So he's waiting around the whole time, rehearsing over and over and over. And then we're shooting, and he's like just waiting for the cue so that the candle can blow so he can come through the door. But anyway, yeah. So it was long, involved. It was kind of like it was Tom Schnoz that wrote and directed that one. He also did Bad Choice Road, which was 509 in season 5, which was a similar face-off with Tony and the two of them in there when Kim kind of bails Jimmy out. So yeah.
So the candle, was that a tricky thing to do? The candle blowing, or like?
No, but I mean, sometimes those things can be tricky to make them look and feel realistic. It's you want to be as subtle as you can and still get the point across, and so that was the big thing. I was like, wait a sec, come on. When we open this door, there can't be like a hurricane rolling through the condo, so it has to make sense. But and the fact that they obviously pay attention to it, they notice the detail.
And stop torturing the one man who went through hell to save your ass.
What can we expect of Kim? Because everyone is fearing about the future of Kim Wexler in the show. What can you tell us about this ride?
I can't tell you anything because anything I say will probably ruin it.
Yeah,
Other than yeah, she really was ready for anything. Obviously she directed that one episode this year too, and so she whatever it is that happens, she does it with amazing grace and an incredible skill that she has. I mean, she's
yeah.
just so fun to watch.
How long will it take to sell this batch? 6 months.
They are, I had worked with them both on El Camino. Brian's a very busy man, and so yeah, no, having them return is fantastic. There's nothing I can really say about it because I'm afraid I'll give something away, but everybody is in for a real treat, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I remember early on with me when I saw Bob the first time playing all three of the characters, Saul and Jimmy and Jean, kind of in a short period of time, and realized how physically different those three people are. They look different,
Yeah.
they sound different, they stand different, they react different. I mean, it's so yeah. I mean, that was one of the early cues for me that this was really going to be different.
I want to just speak about it properly. Heart doctors tell me that what I had was a heart incident, not technically a heart attack.
Well, I was not there. I will tell you that it was during an even number episode, and so unfortunately, I mean, more fortunately, I didn't. I mean, I got a phone call from one of the producers right away telling me that they didn't know how much longer we were going to be shooting. We were going to continue for a few more days because there was stuff that we could pick up and get around, but everybody was absolutely, freaked out and devastated. I mean, he had medics on him almost immediately. He had Rosa, our health and safety person, which is a newly added department. This was our first season we ever had health and safety. She is such an old-time ER nurse that she carries a defibrillator around in the trunk of her car, and that really made the difference for Bob in his comeback. Getting him back going and on the road to recovery. I could not believe that Bob was back to work in 6 weeks. None of us could. That's how in testament to what the kind of shape that he was continuing to stay in. And he was actually on his exercise cycle right next to the set when the heart attack occurred. But yeah, it was really tough. I mean, my camera operator, my A camera operator, Matt Cradle, has been a good friend of mine for many, many, many years. I remember, and he and I own a house together in Albuquerque. He came home that night, and I'd already heard about what had happened, but he, explained to me like Bob's coloring when he came around the corner. Ray was screaming, and they all kind of went over there, and Bob was blue, and Matt said that everybody on the crew was just kind of in shell shock. They brought some counselors in, and lots of people actually took them up on it, and really talked about their experiences. We were obviously all pulling for him. They said almost immediately that that he was incredibly lucky, but that he was also in fantastic shape, and that his chances were great. So we knew that fairly quickly, but we didn't know how long we would be down, and he was back to work in 6 weeks, which just blew my mind. So
No one knows what we're doing. Except for us.
What does Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad mean for you, and how was the last day of shooting this amazing TV show? How did you and the entire crew live this?
it was very emotional. I mean, we were winding down as the final week was kind of progressing. We do pickups at the end, so we were doing bits and pieces from lots of different scenes, lots of different episodes along the way, which is kind of what's interesting, because we always shoot all of them before they even start to cut them necessarily. I mean, the editors are at work, but none of the final decisions have been made. So yeah, it was a wind down. We all could feel it coming, and it was very kind of. It was very sad, but yet, everybody was excited to kind of do something else, I suppose. But it has been an incredible experience for me. I've learned my storytelling ability as a cinematographer has really improved on my understanding of visual interpretation of the script, and how important it is to not look for cool shots, but to tell the story, to always go back to the story. The opportunities that I was given, with Vincent Peter, very early on, to basically just kind of push the envelope and make choices that may be risky, but if something fails, we'll figure it out. That was one of the first things they ever told me in the past my interview. But I had already shot the one episode of Breaking Bad with Michael Slovis that he directed in season 5, the season opener of season 5. And so I had some experience, so I kind of knew what I was in for, and what a treat it was to work with these folks, and they're so talented. And I mean, I remember even like scouting around on El Camino with Vince, and everybody that came up to talk to him, he would take time, and no matter what it did to our schedule, it was important to spend time with them and thank them and tell them how much he appreciated them being fans. And so when it starts. When the guy at the top is like that, none of us have an excuse.
Yeah.
We all have to be, as nice as we can, obviously, and it's a great way to make films with it. It kind of takes the curse off of the pressure, and everybody enjoys their time, and I think that the ideas flow a lot better that way too. So yeah, it was an absolute treat, and I was sad to see it go. It's been an incredible ride for me and for my career. And I'm excited to see everybody be able to watch the last